Let's see. Can you hear me now? Okay. I know we have lots of online live people. Can you hear me now? I think you can. Okay. Interesting. All right. I'm going to go back to the question. Yes, you can hear me now. So I'm on my computer audio. Hopefully when we have the live studio audience members, I'll either read their question or I don't know, come up with something. Okay, so the question was, I have a friend who recently had prostate cancer and has intimacy issues with his wife, who he has been married to for 35 years. And I would like to help him out with encouragement of somehow. Can you help me with that? Yeah, I think that first and foremost, it sounds like you are already very sensitive to the fact that you can't, I'm assuming you're saying like you can't have the sexual intimacy, like that he's having some kind of erectile dysfunction, something physically that's happening in his body as a result of the prostate cancer. I'm not familiar with all of the implications of that particular cancer, but I can understand how that would just be so difficult to have in a relationship. But there are so many ways that we can share intimacy with others. And there's very tantric practices where you can exchange sexual energy, energy from all your chakras. And I think this is providing an opportunity, at least for now, and maybe something will change later, where some of that functionality, that physical functionality comes back. But I would use it as a great opportunity to actually chakra work of it and the tantric work of it, where you can start exchanging energy on a deeply intimate level within your body. Now, you might say, well, how do I do that? And that's a great question. First of all, you have to have the intention to want to actually connect with that loved one in a different way. And the first thing that we always have to do in many of these situations is to get rid of the mind, because the mind's going to come in. The mind is like always thinking, how do I do this? This isn't going to work, or whatever the narratives are in your husband's mind and in your mind. And so I would start to just monitor like, oh gosh, okay, what's in my mind that's causing this situation to stop, to cause the magic to not happen? And then start to feel into your body and start to become very expressive with one another as to what it feels like, because you have a huge body that has lots of pieces and parts to it. And it all has energy and it all has sensuality and sexuality to it. And we can start to experience ourselves in a different way. It doesn't always have to be sexual intercourse in the way that we think that it is traditionally. Granted, I know that you want to get back to that, and you may, but there's so many beautiful techniques that you can do. And it starts with the breath. So breathing and making that eye contact and going back to those emotions of how you feel with each other, being each other's presence. It can be as simple as, touching each other's skin. There's so many things that bring us back into that presence. And let's keep in mind that oxytocin is the cuddle hormone, right? It doesn't have to be about sex. It can happen when just through hugs and through eye contact. And so when we start to raise our oxytocin levels, we start to get into those intimate moments and that soulful sharing that I think we're all wanting and craving with another person in relationship, because that's the beauty of relationships, is we get to experience ourselves. So I think number one, don't be too hard on yourselves, right? Mentally, emotionally, try to just get into that mind space and say, okay, these are the thoughts that are coming. Let's throw these out. Let's just throw these out. Let's come back to our bodies. Let's come back to our breath. Let's come back to our eye contact. Let's come back to the feelings that we can evoke, because your heart is still there and your body is still there and you can still feel all of this. And I think what's being called forward for you potentially in your spiritual journey is that you actually have a very different experience with your spouse, especially because you say you've been married for 35 years. So there's a lot of things that happen over 35 years and a lot of narratives that come in. And this is giving you a really, really interesting opportunity to approach sexual intimacy and spiritual intimacy with your partner in a totally different way. Hopefully that's helpful. If not, I'm always open to having you schedule a one-on-one session. We can go deeper into this and talk more about the details and how you might be able to move through this. Now, I've got a bunch of people in the studio audience. So since I don't have my second mic, perhaps you want to come forward and you know what I'll do is I'm going to risk this, because I also have a little bit of a situation with my mic on the table, but I'm going to put it around And ask your question, please. And then if you would sit in the chair, and then we can speak about it that way. So if there's anybody ready to go from the studio audience, okay, great. So perhaps ask the question here on the mic first, and then you can come around here.
Yeah, hi Beth. How do I balance speaking with my truth so I'm heard and not being seen as pushy or overbearing?
Okay, so how do the balance of truth and not wanting to be overbearing? I think it's the tonality has a lot to do with it. And oftentimes what's helpful is saying to your partner, because what's hard sometimes is when we have truth within us, and there's oftentimes an emotion attached to it. And that emotion we kind of like try to harness and control. We want to not like go way out here. So if you feel comfortable in that moment, just say to your partner or whoever you're speaking to, your friend, your whoever, I'm feeling this way, whatever it is. And I'm not sure that I'm going to say it or articulate it in the way that I really mean it. Would you be willing to just sit with me in this moment and hear what I'm feeling? And then see what their reaction is, right? So that way you kind of already preempt, you say, okay, I'm having this experience. I'm not sure exactly what's going to come out of my mouth. And I feel like I want to speak my truth, but it might just come across a little harsh. Or it might come across too soft, or just might come across totally wrong. And I recognize you as the person I'm in the relationship with as someone coming with a totally different lens. So how I say it, I might say it perfectly in my mind, but how you receive it might be a little bit different. So I'm saying this probably in a situation where it's like really got some charge to it, right? Like if it's just like an everyday thing and you're just kind of rolling along, you might not take it so intentionally. But when I think we can just speak our truth, which is, I have something I want to share. I'm just not sure how it's going to come out. Or I'm not saying this is for you because it might not be, but for the collective, it might be like, I've been told that sometimes when I say things, it comes out in a way that feels offensive, or it comes out in a way that feels rough. And just saying that, and I'm working on it. Would you just be with me as I try to articulate what I'm feeling? Because it's those emotions. Now, the other thing, another technique is when you're feeling that and you're like, I feel like I'm back in that pattern of maybe saying something that's going to get rubbed wrong, just taking a breath and taking a moment. And sometimes it's even just getting up from the table, or just, taking a moment, stepping away and coming back so that you can kind of process that emotion within yourself. And sometimes it's the next day. Right? It's like sometimes we don't even do it like in that moment. I often do that because I am such an emotional being. I have so much, and when I get hit with something, like, oh, okay, I just like I don't want to go too far with my emotion. I want to just kind of sit with it, and then feeling into, is it mine? Is it theirs? Is it like what is it? But I think I love that you want to speak your truth, and I think that's so important. And oftentimes when we speak it and then we get a negative response, it makes us not want to speak our truth. And so that's the challenge a lot of times that we work with. So I think if you try one of those three ways, depending upon the intensity of the situation, the level. Some people don't care, if it's somebody just walking by, you're not going to say, right now I'm feeling in my third chakra, right? You're not going to really get into that level of articulation, but you can if you're with someone that you really care deeply about, because then they see your vulnerability and they see what you're working with. And that's what relationships are all about, isn't it? Right? Just being able to speak our truth and know our truth, right? And that's oftentimes a problem too. So is that helpful, or is there something more I could add?
Yes, no, that was very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, do we have anyone else that's online that wants to ask a question? Or we've got, yay, I'm happy. I have so many people online. I think it was the Bali thing, wasn't it, that got everybody going here? Okay, I can go to the next submitted question unless anybody here wants to jump in. Okay, so when a partner does something to hurt us, how can we not see it as a reflection on us? Well, actually, it is a reflection on you, because we ask our people in our life, whether it's a complete stranger or someone that we love, to trigger us sometimes or to nurture us sometimes. And so what it is that they have to say to us is something we've asked them to share with us. Now, okay, I'm going to go out there and then I'm going to come back on it, because yeah, if somebody says something really vile and rude, you're like, yeah, no, I really didn't ask them to say that. But what it is really feeling into like, well, what's in it for me? Like, what is the emotion for me in this situation? So I think taking it not so much to heart that you're so judgmental on yourself, like, oh, I deserve this, like if they've said something that hurt you, but just saying, wow, what is it that's the history behind this? If it's a longer term relationship that's getting me to this, like, this immediate emotion of feeling hurt, because there's nothing wrong with feeling hurt. You're just experiencing an emotion. But then you want to feel into, but well, what is the deeper, lesson? I always like to get the lesson out of things. What is the deeper meaning behind this interaction? And once we really go back into ourselves and less about like, you hurt me. Listen, you can always say, when you said that to me, it made me feel this way. Then you've said your experience, right? You've shared with them how you're feeling and what it was that they did. But it also helps sometimes to just take that emphasis off of you hurt me, right? Because that makes a lot more defensiveness back and forth. So the more we can be vulnerable and the more we can be in our heart space as opposed to our mind space. And I'm a master at being in my mind. And so I do really have to make a conscious effort to be in my heart. And I'll tell you a story that comes to mind actually as I'm sitting here in Bali. My silversmith, the jewelry maker that makes the mini mantra word bar necklaces, there was one time when I was trying to get the clasp in the back and he's like, Beth, use your heart. And I was like, how do I do that? In that moment, I was kind of like, no, I want to figure this out. And so while there's a time and a place and a space to figure things out from the mind, when we can just drop in to the heart and recognize that, wow, I love this person, or I care about this person, and I want to have that heart space with them. I don't want to fight with the mind, because there's something there in that hurt. And oftentimes the people that we love the most, we hurt the most, and we're the hardest on, because we have built an expectation, but we have such adoration for them that the disappointment can come in really fast. It can come in hard, and it can be because there's a whole dossier of things in our relationships that have created this narrative and these storylines that feel hurtful. And so, I think the earlier in relationships we can unravel all of the things, and it takes work. It's not to say that it's easy. It's like, it actually takes work for us to stop and say, hey, let's talk this out. I need to feel heard, and I want to hear you. And then deal with what those words are that come forward. And I also, again, I like to just take the time away. Sometimes you just take that pause. I'm a big fan of journaling. I think if you spend a little time journaling about like, well, what was it that actually hurt you? We don't have to make it a big deal. But we want to get to the core of it. Like, what is it that's hurting me so much? Why did it feel so hurtful? And there's a good chance that the person that said it to you didn't actually mean it to be hurtful. Especially in men and women relationships, a lot of times there's a bluntness that, not hypothetically, generally speaking, there's a bluntness oftentimes that men have that doesn't sit as well for women, because we're oftentimes soft and in a good, powerful way, but we're emotional. And so the way that something lands for women can be very different than another man. And it can be, very matter of fact. So I think, also just think about that masculine, feminine energy and that dynamic, and how that plays into the hurtfulness of it. But it sounds like there's some really big, juicy lessons there for you. And I will also say, because you're not here with me online, if it's a situation where someone doesn't care for you and they're saying something hurtful, because I was answering this in the context that you're getting this from someone that you really deeply care for, that you're in a relationship with of some sort. But if it's someone that, really is not in your inner circle, or someone that you don't have a deep relationship with, then I think it's about using discernment and setting boundaries, right? Because then we don't need to tolerate people saying hurtful things, because in that case, it's most likely their shit that they're just projecting onto you. And so there's also that dynamic that you want to just have a little radar on. Is it mine? Is it theirs? And do they deserve my time and energy, not from a selfish place, but a self-love place? Like, is this relationship really serving my highest good? And if it's not, then you can easily move on and say, this relationship isn't serving my highest good, and or just say nothing at all, right? And you're just moving away from it and not letting the mind narrative take over and make you feel, like you need to dissect. Maybe you just let it go and keep moving on. Okay, I think we've got some other live questions coming in. And okay, so I'm going to answer this one, and then anyone in the live studio audience, if you want to prepare. Okay, so I have decided to ask for a divorce. Now that he knows I am serious, he is being the perfect husband. How do I stay clear to know what is best for me and stay on the path that is best for me? I love this question, and I'm going to actually give a personal example because it's what's coming forward to share. Is when I first left my husband, I had exactly the same thing. I mean, it was like there was all these opportunities to do counseling, and I was present, and I wanted to work on it. And then, as women, oftentimes when we're done, we're done. And when men get that, they're like, oh shit, she's done. And then they're like, oh, scrambling, trying to figure out and then it's like, oh, and the rug got pulled out from underneath me and blah, blah, blah. So these are I don't want to make them super common, but it's common that it happens this way. And I remember for me, I was shattered by the whole thing. I didn't get married to get divorced. I got married to stay married, and I wanted to work through it. And at the time I had an amazing spiritual to him, how do I know? I mean, it was almost this exact question, how do I just keep clear? And I just remember him saying to me, Beth, stay the course. You at a soul level, why you're making this choice. Keep going, and know that if it's your destiny to be with this person, something will come back around, and you will know as clearly as you knew to leave. You will know as clearly to stay. And I was like, thank you. And it just was like a really nice, solid yes, until there's a time where I have an absolute yes, this man is back in this for all the right reasons. I wasn't going to go back. I wasn't going to play the shenanigans. I didn't play any games. I was just very, very clear. I just stood my ground. So I feel like that story is coming forward for a very particular reason for you as well, is that standing your ground as to why you made this decision is from a beautiful, heartfelt place of you wanting to receive what you deserve in a relationship and in growth. So we all have spiritual soul contracts with people, and it feels like that your contract is over with your husband. Now, oftentimes, I don't know why this movie comes to mind a lot of times, Sliding Doors. If there is a time and a space where you're supposed to, so there's two realities that are working and different situations happen, but at the end, in that movie, they end up together. So we have to also have a level of trust that if that's really what's meant to be, if that's your soul contract, is to separate and to go apart and come back together, that will happen. But right now, that doesn't feel like that's the case. It feels like the spiritual growth journey that you're on is your number one priority, because that's where self-love is. And when you're in your own self-love and you're loving yourself so deeply, that's when you can share that love with someone else. And not everyone is on the same journey at the same time. And so there's that constant question of, are we working on this together in our soul's journey? Because you don't have to be at the same place spiritually, consciously, but you both have to have the same level of desire to want to work through it. And I'm not feeling that on a soul level, maybe that same desire. Everyday life, it's hard to have divorce. It's hard when we have children and we have houses and we have finances and we have all these things that have to split. It's freaking scary. But when we stay aligned with our soul and we know that this is the right decision for me right now, keep going and stay in that right now moment. And that's probably the most profound thing you can do. And it's also the hardest thing that we do, is stay in that profound moment of now. Everyone talks about it. Most people say, but how the hell do we do it? And again, it's back to some of the basics of breath and gratitude and just knowing that we are safe exactly where we are right now and feeling into that. Now, one last thing I'll say about it that I think is also really helpful, at least during these really chaotic times, is to write the same question down in your journal, in your notebook, and let the pencil write the answer. Because what comes out, I bet you that if you just really let it flow, that tomorrow you'll wake up and you'll be like, wow, who wrote that? You'll get your own insights. So it's always about channeling into our own heart space and getting our own inner wisdom just tuned in a way that we get it. And so I feel like that's really up for you right now. So I think you're in a good spot. I feel really energetically good about what you're doing and moving forward with, and that clarity. But I think you're really clear. And I think just stay in that true north of you and your personal growth and your personal development and your spiritual expansion. And it feels like that is the number one priority for you right now. So if you're still live and online with me, I would love to hear if you want something more on that, or if that feels like that helps you to anchor into that clarity, because I feel that you really do know, and you really are actually quite clear. It's just all the wobbles, the stuff that we get. Thank you so much. You are such an amazing angel in my life. Thank you. Yes, I'm happy that that's helpful. Okay. Any other live questions? If you're on with me live, studio audience, is my studio audience being shy? I think they might be. Okay, I'll go on to another pre-submitted question. Okay. I've recently joined a startup where many of my colleagues have worked together for a long time. I'm finding it challenging to understand how I fit in and build trust within the team, especially when it sometimes feels like I'm out of the loop. What's the best way to approach these dynamics and establish trust without stepping on any toes? Yeah, wow. It's always a challenge, isn't it? No matter how old we are, we're always feeling like we're trying to feel, where do I fit in? How do I navigate with this new group of people, whether it's a cocktail party or not? But when it's your new job or career, it feels like there's so much weight on the line, meaning you have a lot that you want to go right, and you want to feel like you're present and that you're not having to watch your back and not having to, just watch out for yourself. Like, you want to feel like you're part of that team. But as we know, every new team, every new social circle, there's always that jostling of like, who are you? What do you do? Da, 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 da. And so I would come back to the presence of who you know you are and what it is that you bring to the table. Because you bring a sense of strength and power and knowledge and wisdom that is different than everybody else. It's at a different level. It may be, and I don't mean hierarchically exactly, but higher or lower. And that's the beauty of teams, is that my strength is someone else's weakness, and someone else's weakness is my strength. And so I would go right into that. At the end of each day, look at the characters in your life that are at work and think, what did I notice were her strengths? What did I notice were his strengths? And maximize those strengths, and then find for you, where are my weaknesses? Because I know you know where they are. And pick the people that can help you and delegate with them if you're in that management position like that, where you can delegate what you know your weakness is, because then you genuinely want and need that person to help you. And I'm not saying you walk up to them and say like, hey, I really suck at X, Y, or Z. No, of course not. But you notice, okay, this person can pick up my Achilles heel. And then they start to feel that energy. Because a lot of times what happens in new situations is we judge other people for what they don't have, or what they aren't, or how they don't connect with us, or how they, and I'm not saying this is you particularly, I'm saying more for the collective and in general, that it's just the nature of the mind is to pick apart all of these, and we're moving into a time for humanity, for unity. This is about unity. It's about finding the things that we agree on, and the things that we can help each other on, and the things that we can partner with each other on. This is my strength. This is your weakness. Okay, let's go. Let's work together on this. And so I think bringing that energy, feeling their judgment, because they're going to judge you. Everyone's, and it doesn't have to be like super judge. I just mean like everyone is sniffing each other out. So just let that shit go, right? And you can journal that too at the end of each day. Like, what was it that that person said to me that made me feel judged or made me feel like they didn't respect me or whatever it is? And then go, okay, let me fine tune that feeling. Let me go into the feeling that I want to feel and bring that into the workplace, so that you're taking your own Achilles heel and just saying, okay, yeah, I'm gonna flip this situation so that I'm not focused on, oh gosh, what did they mean by that? Or that didn't feel right. Or acknowledge your feelings, but don't let the mind mess and the chaos of their judgment eat away at you, because you're in this role for a very specific reason. You bring strengths to this role and you want to maximize them. So hopefully that's helpful. If you're on with me live, I would love to hear if there's something more I can add to that. Because I think a lot of people have these. Like I said, it doesn't always have to be work. It can be a social situation. It can be that you move to Ubud and you're out there and you're sitting at a restaurant and you're with a new group of friends and you're just trying to figure out where you fit in. It could be that you live somewhere forever and you're just trying to change your group of friends, and that's hard because the comfort that we have in the knowing of people sometimes stifles us. And so, yeah, because we like to be comfortable as creatures and as humans, but get out there and push yourself and take each interaction as a way to learn a lesson about you and the deeper parts of you that are coming forward for observation and for reflection. And yeah, I think you'll find that dynamic will change quickly. And I think also, as you establish these relationships approach, you'll build a stronger foundation, as opposed to, keep in touch with what are the narratives and the storylines I'm building about that person. And then when you really just let that go, that will help them to let some of that go. It's an energetic shift. You know how it works. It's just how our relationships can work. So you stay in the positive, you stay grounded in who you are. And then I think you're going to find that everybody will recognize you and see you for that. Okay, let's see here. Do we have any other live studio audience questions? No, we're still shy. Okay. All right. I have actually my largest group on the road sitting here with me, so I love it. And they're all dear people in my life. Okay. The next question. 30 years and had an affair to distance from my husband. I'm committed to working together to have this work. Any advice on how to fall in love again? Love is such a beautiful thing. And I think we misinterpret love, because love is within us. It's not outside of us. And I don't think that love is something that we can, with another person, it's not something we can force. It's not something we can buy. It's not something, it just is. It's like a little pilot light, right? And when we first meet someone, there's a huge ignition and it gets ignited and there's all this juicy energy that comes around it. And then over time, the mind comes in, as we've talked about, and starts to just dampen that light a little bit. Because there's judgments, there's personality. And so it's going back to the basics of self-love within you. And the more you love yourself and you just focus to share your love with this other person, then you allow yourself to just be in this dynamic to see, like, where are they at with their own self-love? And if they're not in a place where they want to be in their own self-love, or they want to work on their own self-love, or they want to show up with you in that way, then I wouldn't force thinking that you need to fall in love again with someone. And there's so many layers to love, right? We can have companionship love. It doesn't have to be hot, steamy sex love all the time. It can be for years. It can be for 30 years. But in order to do that, you have to look at that little glow of love. And I sometimes refer to it as like a little baby, right? It's like the little glow of love and their love and the love between you. And that's the focus and what needs to always be nurtured and always be coddled in a way, and glow goes away if you're not focused on keeping it glowing. So I think for you, since you're feeling, from what I'm getting from the question, that love is gone in a sense, I would focus back on the companionship love, because you obviously want to be with this person for a reason. And I'm going to say that what's coming is that you may want to consider just for a thought, you may want to consider that maybe the romantic red hot love is not something that the two of you will rekindle. And that maybe you go into a completely different dynamic with your love, that you honor the deep love that you have. I'm assuming, that you probably have children and you have, you've built a life for 30 years. So there's a lot there. There's a huge foundation of comfort and beautiful. And you can keep all of that, and you can keep that love for that person. But maybe it means that you have a different romantic relationship. So it gets a little bit sticky in what I'm saying, in the sense that if you were here with me live, we could articulate a little bit more of what it is that you're looking for, because it may be that you don't have a live-in romantic married relationship with your husband anymore, and that you move on to someone else, and that you have someone else in your life because you've done this already, right? Because this was after having an affair. So there was an ignition within you that needed to be reignited. You might be able to take that flame that came from the affair and bring it in, but right now, with the energy that I'm feeling around the question, that feels too forced, because love is such a precious thing, and it comes and it goes and it flows. And if it's not flowing, we can't make it flow. We can only be present to our own self-love. So I think there's just a lot more here, and some nuances that, that we could talk through a little bit more to get into what might be the right approach for you. But I don't know that it's to stay in this particular relationship if it's not serving you. So just that fits. And if you're interested, we can always do a one-on-one, and we can go deeper into all of the nuances of what you're working with here. The other thing that's coming though is, to get through any guilt that you might have about this affair, that the guilt will also put the flame out for both of you. And there was lots of reasons why this happened. You know what they are. And if you don't know all of them, or you don't know what they are, or you haven't really tapped into that quite yet, but I feel like you have. I feel like you've really gone deep into like the whys behind it. It just feels like there's a dusting off of some of the guilt that comes with affairs, because everything happens for a reason. And there is, even though it feels probably very, very tumultuous for your partner, there's also very good, juicy stuff there. And that's their work to do around that affair. So hopefully that's helpful. And if not, I'm happy to answer more. And even if you're watching on replay, you can always write in the comments, and I'm happy to elaborate. Or if you're someone out there that's had a similar situation and you want to get some elaboration, I'm happy to do that. Just put in the notes. Okay. All right. I must have someone else from the studio audience that wants to jump in. Okay, great.
Hi. Hi, Beth.
Hi.
So I'm wondering, in these tumultuous times, the last 4 years, we've had so many different things thrown at us, and each person has a different perspective, a different level of information, a different level of information sources. And then we have to digest, use our critical thinking mind to assess what that means to us and what that means to our world. And then we take that information, and then we go back and be with our loved ones, our friends, our family, our lovers, whoever.
Yep.
And their different levels of information can be contrasting to yours. Mm-hmm. Because where they are and their growth can be very different from where you are. And it's very polarizing. So how do we continue to be able to hold our truth whilst engaging with our loved ones and their truth and their version of their truth, when it can be so opposing to yours?
Yeah. I love that question, because I think it's a question that a lot of people are dealing with right now. And it's a question that I would say it's about unity and points of agreement. And there's a lot of ideas, and there's a lot of thought constructs, and there's a lot of social constructs, cultural constructs. There's all of these constructs and all these ideas of what's right and what's wrong, and there's information. And if you're with someone that you care about and you're with someone that you genuinely deeply love, I would focus on that love. And I would focus on what can you and your person, whether it's a family member or a lover, do that takes the love that you have and share together out into the community, which means it can be as basic as how you show up in a restaurant and how you treat other people. And how that, to me, is the most important part of what we can do and exude as a human. Because yes, there is a ton of information and there is a lot of stuff going on. And I believe, there's the ripple effect, there's a butterfly effect. So certainly as one person, we can have a huge effect on the greater whole, but I don't think we do it when we're in discord. I think we do it when we are deeply in our own self and when we're speaking our own truth. And I don't think our truth always has to be the truth of someone else. And when there is that difference, there's an honoring of that's their lens. This is my lens. And what can we do together? Are we committed to do something together on a local level? So let me come back to this, that I think everyone wants to help heal the world in some, not everybody, but everyone sitting in the room probably wants to help heal the world in some way. The listeners on this show. The only thing we can do is heal ourselves. The only thing we can do is make our light brighter, glow our light, to expand ourselves, to share our knowledge, to share our light. But when it comes at the expense of our own, and I'm not saying this is exactly for you, but when it comes at the expense of our own, where we get so caught up in the narrative being different, then we're dampening our own light, because then our focus is on the differences. It's not as focused on, I have this knowledge, I have this wisdom, and I want to shine my light brightly out there into the community. And that's, I think, on an everyday level, what we need to focus on and do. Now, if your partner says, that's not important to me, then you might be with the wrong partner. If you're light and shining, their love and the love you have together out into the world, then I think you're talking about a whole different topic. But I don't think that's, I don't think that we have to. There are so many people that have completely different views, and they're married and they're together and they still find a way. So I don't think it has to be like, I can't be, and I know you're not saying this, but I can't be your friend, or I can't do this, or I can't do that with you because you believe that. It's like, we have to come to a place where we can respect that other people have a different lens. They've come at it for however many years they're alive, their programs, asking them, if you want to have the conversation, asking them, what is it that's driving that belief? And then allowing them to have that belief, not thinking that you have to change it, or you have to fix it, or you have to make that difference. Because when you do that, then you're losing a lot of energy. And so I think stay focused on the people that are able to help with your mission, right? And then minimize where it's not working with a loved one or a partner. Yeah.
Can I come back to you?
Yeah.
So in relationships, people come together because they see mutual points of view, morals, values, principles, ways of thinking, can come together in a way that you can communicate and recognize oneself in the other.
Yeah.
With everything that's going on just now, what it's doing is it's showing contrast.
Yeah.
So we're seeing differences in the other, whether it be their morals, their values, their unwillingness to see. Yeah.
So I'm just going to jump in because I know the audience can't hear you. Oh. So the question is just a follow up to that. That's about, and I think one of the things that you're hitting on if your morals, ethics, and values are off, you're not in the right relationship. To me, that's not. So if your discussion is that you don't morals, ethics, values, then you're not in the right relationship. Then it's not going to be a relationship that's helpful for you. I think the judgments at which we come at topics and these constructs is more the energy that I'm talking about. That if you want to focus on that in your relationship, then that's going to be separation. And we're coming back to unity. We're coming back to our own wholeness, like what's right for us. And I do believe we can have very different views, and I can still love you like deeply. It's not for me.
Can I talk?
Yeah, but brief if you can, because they can't hear you.
I'm just saying, is unity when you love all life all people, all plants, all animals, all one, as opposed to shutting off on those things. Like, unity is when you have a love space for all of energy that's here. And if you see people who don't have that love space for that.
Yeah. So the question is about unity and loving everything that's here. I mean, at the highest level of consciousness, we are all one. So we are all connected. And as we come down into these dimensions, we have a lot of different ideas about, whether green is a beautiful color or blue is a beautiful color, whether, there's all of these different ways that we experience life. And so we've all come here with a purpose to experience life in a certain way. And when we can step back from the judgments of others, we can be more in the unity energy. Granted, I know, like, we're not all Buddhas sitting here. We're not all in oneness all the time, but that's part of the experience that we chose to have. That's part of the contract that we set up for ourselves coming in. We said, I'm going to have all of these discords. I'm going to have these relationships that challenge me, that's going to push me, that makes things not appear the way that I see them, so that we can work through those things. So yeah, I think the more we can bring love and oneness into our own hearts, and we can see the unity that is out there. Mother Nature, we're sitting in Bali. It's the most beautiful example of, I know you know that, and you're deeply immersed in that energy. That's the energy I think we need to focus on moving forward. It doesn't mean that you agree with everybody. Of course not. If they have something you don't agree with, you don't agree with it. So it's not about the agreement aspect of it. It's about letting them have their lens, letting them have their life experience, and you have your life experience. And when we get there, then I think we find the points of agreement, like love, and we focus on those things, then we're in a different energy. It's a different space to be in. And I know it's hard because the love lines, and we want to talk about the details of everything. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Thank you. Okay. Is there anyone else? Okay. Online. We've got a couple more onlines, and then we're almost down to the hour here. Can you love someone deeply? If you do, put them before yourself. Okay. Sorry. I kind of need my glasses. Can you love someone deeply? If you do, put them before yourself first, or do they need to love you first or simultaneously? Love yourself first or love both. Thank you for the clarification there. Love yourself first or love both simultaneously. I mean, look, ideally, we love ourselves. We love ourselves so much that we are simply in a relationship to share our love with someone else. But that is the beauty, the crux, the entanglement of all relationships, is that until we are enlightened like a Buddha or, the Dalai Lama, we have and we build constant expectations of ourselves and others. So we get these incredible opportunities to fall madly, deeply in love with someone, and it shifts our life ever so dramatically. And we think that that love is coming from the other person, when it's actually just an ignition of our own love for ourselves that's being reflected through this relationship, and something that we cherish and something that we honor. But at the end of the day, the love is deeply within ourselves. So the more you can stay there and share, as opposed to think this conditional love, and I know that you're not suggesting conditional love per se, but what I'm saying is that everything is conditional love unless it is just love, unless we are just loving them for all that they are. And so every relationship comes in, whether it's a child or a parent or a lover, to show us something more about ourselves. And so that's where I think, it's not about you love me first or I love you first, or it's showing up in that love and loving each other unconditionally. And when observation, you do the work and you say, whoa, what's that? Was that from my whatever, the lack, and I'm not saying for you, I'm saying for the collective, it might be like, is that the lack of love from my father that I didn't get when I was a child? Is that the lack of whatever it was, however you learned love growing up? those are the programs that are running in your mind. So ideally, yeah, you just love with someone simultaneously, and you cherish that experience, that ability to feel that, because it doesn't come along all the time, and it doesn't come along in a deep like ignited way all the time either. And so when it does, it's I always think it's a great opportunity for some deep healing, whatever that is for you and your partner, because the stronger that sexual chemistry, a lot of times that stronger the connection is, oftentimes the deeper and I don't mean wound like in a bad way, but the deeper the lesson is, the deeper the offering is to actually learn more about yourself, and then communicating through that and really staying in that glow, so that it does feel simultaneous, right? That it does feel like just a constant exchange from our heart center. But we're so trained to think about love from our mind. I love you because, it's like, no, it's like, I just love. And I'm happy to be here with you and to share that love with you, and for you to share that love with me. And then isn't it so hard when our lovers take that love away? Oh my God, right? Then we get into the heartbreak and we're like, gosh, my heart's cracked open. You're gone. So that's a whole nother question in and of itself. But it is keeping our heart space open and heal it when it's broken, heal it when it's closed. And blocked, and and staying in that beautiful space, and asking our brothers and sisters out there to help us out with it. Sometimes it's a friend that needs to come in and help. Sometimes it's heals us in a way that we couldn't have ever imagined. So I think taking relationships as super precious is what's the most important aspect of this, and really honoring when people walk into our life, how special and important that really is. Okay, hopefully that's helpful. If not, I'm happy to elaborate. I think we're just down to the wire here. So if you haven't already gone to bethbell.me, please do. There's the State of the Heart assessment. It's free. You can find out where your heart is. There's lots of guides. There's the Awakening and Healing Handbook. There's the Psychedelics Resource Guide. There's the Herpes Handbook. So many juicy things. And you can always sign up for a one-on-one session if you want to go deeper, or my advisor, spiritual advising monthly sessions as well. So happy you're here. Thank you so much for being with us live on the show. I can't wait to see you again next week, every Sunday, 11:11 Pacific time. This week being in Asia was a little bit different, but I look forward to seeing you again really soon. And until then, wishing you much bliss and love on the journey. Namaste.
You can talk Oprah.